Hey guys, welcome to the last episode of JavaScript OOPS Under the Hood, and in this video we are going to implement inheritance using the very standard approach. That is, we will be using constructors, we will be using super, extends and class. So without wasting any time, let's get started. So let us have a look at the code snippet. We have a class create customer. We have a constructor function accepting name, account balance and branch as parameters, and we are assigning all these parameters to this object. Next we have declared two functions, that is add money and fetch balance. Next we are calling a create customer class with the new keyword, and we are getting the result in the customer1 const variable, and we are calling add money and fetch balance function. Pretty straightforward. And next line is interesting. In this we are using the extends keyword on the class create salaried user, and it is extending to the our create customer class. In the constructor we are calling a super keyword with the parameters, with the arguments as name, account balance and branch. And finally we are doing this dot salary equals to salary, and on the next line we have a fetch salary function. We will not be creating any new global memory or the execution context, because the work which we have done in the previous video would be completely reused, just slight modifications in this part. So let's have a quick look at the code and in our global memory and execution context. So when JavaScript runs, before that we need to understand that how this whole diagram helps us understanding how extend is working behind the scenes. So let's have a quick look. We are when JavaScript runs to the code, it finds a class named as create customer, in which we have a constructor function. So this whole thing, as discussed in the previous videos also, let us use something different this time. So this whole thing over here, the bundle of function and this object is being wrapped under one name known as class. This whole thing is a class where we have function name as create customer, which belongs to the class name, and we have a constructor function which is accepting name, account balance and branch as an argument. So this function is now labeled as constructor, because this is what we are calling with the parentheses. So this is labeled as constructor over here, and this whole package or bundle becomes class. And by default we know the functions come with an object, so whatever function you are declaring inside that class wrapper is automatically added in the prototype object of this create customer class, right? So add money and fetch balance are automatically added in the prototype, and this whole thing is just automated by JavaScript by running from line 1 to line 13. So this whole thing is already automated. We don't have to basically declare prototypes and set add money fetch balance in the prototypes. Then we don't have to have this function over here, because this whole thing is automatically done by JavaScript, and this is the main purpose of behind this class syntax, right? And this is exactly how things work behind the scenes. Next we will skip this part for now. We'll come back to this once we execute our customer1. So customer1 we are executing with create with new keyword. Well, we have to note that, and we are calling create customer function with Alex 100 and XYZ. Nice. And first we the parameters are being assigned with values, which is name Alex, account balance 100, and branch name is XYZ. And we have discussed in previous video what things this new keyword does for us, that it automatically creates and empty this object in the execution context. And we are doing this dot name, this dot account balance, and this dot branch. So whole thing is the same. We are adding these properties in this object. And one thing that we have also discussed is new keyword sets the proto of this keyword with the prototype of the caller function, which is create customer. So this whole bond is already created. This was already discussed in the previous videos. And coming back to the next line, we are doing customer one dot add money, which is JavaScript looks for customer one in the global memory. It finds it. This one looks for the object customer one in the global memory. This finds it over here, and it calls. We are using dot, which means we are calling. We are accessing the properties of this object, and we are calling the add money function. And yeah, by the way, this whole object was automatically returned from this object, because this is one of the thing which new keyword automates for us. So we are having name, account balance, branch, and the proto being set to the prototype of the create customer function. Now next we look for the add money function. It is not in this object. We go to the proto, and this proto takes up to the prototype of create customer function, and in this prototype object, we have the add money, and we execute. So we are adding our money, which becomes 100 plus 1, which is 101. And yeah, next we are not having this now. We can completely ignore this. Great. Next we are calling fetch balance. Again, the same routine. I suggest you to pause this video and run to fetch balance onto yourself. Next we have something interesting. Yeah, so we are having create salary user function, basically, which is a class. So this whole thing, this function and this object over here, this thing is now wrapped inside label named as class, right? And this function would be labeled as constructor, and we are having this class over here, this constructor well defined, and in the prototype we are setting the fetch salary function. We are not setting, we are declaring a fetch salary function, which we are initializing with some data in this. Next we see that we are having a proto bond linked up to the prototype of create customer function. So here comes the keyword extends into the picture, and this extend keywords automates one thing for us, is that it sets the proto of the prototype object of this particular function object bundle, which is labeled as create salaried user under a wrapper named as class. So the proto inside this prototype object is set to the prototype of create customer function and object bundle. So the extend does this part automatically by itself. We don't have to do it. Next we are calling the constructor function. So we are doing customer 2 equals to new create salary user Jane 200 XYZ and 20. So we will see that how constructor runs this time and how is super running. So we will having a slight change inside this execution context. So let's erase some stuffs. I think this part is gonna remain same, only change relies inside this part. Great. So the moment we call this thing, we with the new keyword and with create salad uses jn 200 xyz and 20 in the execution context, the parameters are assigned the values, and since we are calling this with a new keyword, new empty, this keyword is automatically set, and currently it is not having any value, it is all empty, right? And once this new keyword is out there, which means we have empty this object and we are inside our constructor function. So inside that constructor function we are calling a super keyword as a function, and we are passing name, account balance, in branch as arguments. So calling super inside that constructor function is equivalent to calling the create customer function with the new keyword. We have new and we are doing create customer, and here goes the arguments, right? And the only thing which differs from the previous approach, that in the previous approach, if you remember, we were having this side effect or ripple effect over here, like whenever this keyword in this execution was changed, the similar effect were happening in this keyword that is present outside of that execution context, right? But this isn't the case happening with class keyword and the extend and super thing, because that's the way how JavaScript was implemented by its developers. So instead having this ripple effect over there, you can assume that we are directly setting this object with the result, the output of this function call over here. Instead of passing this as a reference over here, instead you should consider that this object was not created in this execution in this local memory or this execution context. Instead it was created in the execution context that will be now created by this function call. So we will be having a execution context over here, a really small one. This would be our local memory lm. Next we go deep inside. So we are calling create customer function. So the name, account balance, and branch. Name would be set to Jane. We are calling account balance, pardon the handwriting, account balance is 200, and we are having branch is xyz, doesn't matters. And since we are calling this with a new keyword, which means we are having a empty this object. So let's create it, and we are having the thing empty. So if you can have a look at the constructor function of the create customer function, so we are setting name, account balance, and branch to this object. So this would become name as Jane, account balance 200, branch xyz, and a proto. So we have a catch over here, right? So ideally what you can think is that ideally, as per our concepts in the earlier videos, in the earlier episodes, the new keyword will set the proto to the prototype of the function caller, right? Ideally it should have said this proto to this prototype over here, from here way up to here, this prototype, because create customer function was the caller and with the new keyword. So ideally our proto should have been set to the create customer prototype object, but since we have super in the play, and it is gonna save us from manually setting this proto to the create salaried user, because that's the whole point of using extend. We want to extend the properties of this salaried user to the create customer. And how we are gonna achieve it? We are gonna achieve it with the super is the thing which helps us setting this proto, which helps us achieving this proto from this create customer to create salaried user prototype. So this proto link would be now created. Go up to the here, and this is a prototype. Let me zoom in. So we have this is the prototype which proto will pointing to because of the super keyword, right? And as usual, this new keyword would return are this object over here, and everything would this whole object would be returned to this this object, and we have this output finally over here, which means our customer 2 is having name as Jane, account balance as 200, branch XYZ, salary 20, and its proto now linking to the prototype of this create salaried user. So I think using class keyword was worth, and because it saved a lot of our time and avoided us from writing complex prototype codes to manually set the prototypes and trigger function calls. So we have the whole setup in the place. Now we have to execute things. Try to run these two lines on your own and on this whiteboard. So let us run things now. Cool. So we have customer2.add money. Customer2, JavaScript goes in the global memory, searches for customer2, it finds it, and since we are using a dot keyword, which means we are accessing the properties of this object, we go to search for the add money function. We have name, account balance, branch, salary. We don't have add money. JavaScript goes to the proto takes JavaScript to the create salaried user prototype object, and we have a fetch salary function, but it is not add money. JavaScript again goes to the proto. This proto takes JavaScript to the prototype of the create customer object, create customer function prototype. So in this prototype, we found finally our add money function, and the account balance of Jane was increased from 200 to 201. Nice. And next we have fetch balance, and I think you must try to dry run this on pen or paper or on a whiteboard, anything you want, and we have ideally you'll find that we have reached to this prototype of create customer function, and yeah, you should give it a shot. And next we have customer2.fetch salary. I think this is the very simple one. Customer2 JavaScript looks for the customer2 in the global memory, and basically we are on line 30, a very last line of our code snippet. So customer2.fetch salary means we are looking for customer2 in the global memory. We don't find fetch salary. We go to the proto takes us to the prototype of the create salaried user function object, and we in this prototype we got our fetch salary function and we execute it. So now you know how a class extends, a constructor and super works behind the scenes, and I've shown you and given a walkthrough of all the features that we need to achieve this, and how the prototypal nature of JavaScript helps us to achieve object-oriented principles in JavaScript. So with that being said, this was all in this series, and I hope you really liked this one, and you got to learn more about the prototypes, inheritance, and how things actually work behind the scenes in JavaScript. So that was all in this series. Till then, take care. Goodbye.